Aujourd'hui, je vais parler de, well, I've been on vacation for quite a while now, and I'm still on vacation, good lord. We are now in months 3 out of 3, finally. Did I just say finally? Do I wish I was actually home? Well, let's find out. And if so, why, right? Yeah. Hey, I'm XenPuck here. So this is kind of a fire-related video, well, more or less, so somewhat tangentially, right? Because this is really about a first world problem of the highest order. Namely, check out this background. That is totally not my house, because we are still on vacation in the French Riviera. Woohoo! Yes, well, that's a problem? Or is that a problem? Not really, right? The weather is perfect, the rosé is of incredible value locally, and my wifey is really moving along in her lifelong dream of French proficiencies. But of course, life is only enjoyable when it's filled with some sort of obstacles, right? So I'm going to skip all that hoo-ha of how great it is to be on vacation and instead address what could possibly be the downsides of being on vacation for an extended, very extended amount of time, right? Giant caveat, of course, being that while I'm still loving this longest of a holiday ever, it's really only long if you don't count the fact that I'm already early retired. It has been on at least staycation mode for the last 5 years. So yes, please ignore that. This is the longest external outside of the US trip I've ever taken, right? And past me would have been absolutely jealous of current me. But I am a perfectionist, so I'm going to use my forum to nitpick about some things that I haven't realized or maybe couldn't prepare for until this long journey has actually taken place. So this clip won't help anyone actually get to fire, but hopefully better prepare anyone else, at least in terms of their mentality for when you do get there. Anyway, if you're intrigued by what I might say, please subscribe, like, comment, share, and all that social media buzzwords, or whatever, because I'm rich enough for me, and it will be great regardless. Now, first downside, well, I do miss my routine and the feeling of stability that I can only get in my home base, in my home country, right? I miss our house, I miss our cat, I miss playing pickleball regularly and video games regularly. Those are the things that I would be doing right now if I was at home, right? Now, my most common past vacations would have been what I called the whole week plus 2 weekend, which is a total of 9 days, right? I think being out of work for 9 days is really not enough to really feel your rhythm's been broken, right? Maybe just for that middle 3 days out of the 9? I guess what I'm trying to point out is that while I had a job, it takes a while to get into holiday mode and out of it, right? For me, that's 3 days in the front to get into it and 3 days in the back to get out of it, leaving only 3 days in the middle of feeling kind of out of my work mode, right? But when this trip has been 3 months long. That's the whole duration plan, right? Oh boy, that middle period is so long that at some point I'm feeling like, my regular habits are atrophying, like pickleball skills in this case, right? The horror. I mean, also, during the last 2 months, I've missed the release of the newest Zelda game and the newest Street Fighter game, which, only comes like once 5 years or so. I mean, how will I ever catch up, especially in an online competitive heavy game like Street Fighter 6? I mean, these are my biggest problems these days. So, definitely not real problems, so I can't really complain. Okay, second peril that I can see for being away for a long time, right? Which is, honestly, I miss most people that I know, right? I know there's the internet these days, and trying to talk to people is possible, but trying to do so across a 7 to 10 hour time difference is just plain awkward, right? Whenever I'm having a real moment during my vacation, I mean, I want to share and talk to my friends about it, right? I think that's pretty normal, right? It's hard to talk to anyone in my home country, though, without making an explicit plan for it. I mean, I have gotten somewhat used to it when it comes to talking to my folks, right? But even for them, I had to move the time when I usually would call them so that it's like both day-ish time for us, right? So that whole freedom of just hitting someone up when the view or what's the context of what's happening reminds me of my friends is not quite possible, right? Of course, I know the solution to this problem. It's pretty easy, right? I could simply make more local friends and share my, travails and joys with them, right? But that's kind of out of scope so long as we're here on a holiday and not just straight up trying to move here, right? Also, I'm not really sure if local French people would be as excited as I am. For instance, all the little things that I really appreciate about this region, such as seeing rabbit meats in the supermarket, right? I'm making some assumptions here because I'm assuming this is, seeing rabbit in France is like seeing kangaroo meat in Australia, right? Nothing special? Now, this last bit, not so much about apparel as it is a realization of how tough Americans have it in terms of, this is in regards to vacation time, right? At least compared to Europeans, right? This is, like I said, this has been my first vacation ever that's been longer than 2 weeks. But having talked to local French people, my God, they're just super surprised whenever they hear about how little holidays or time off Americans get, right? We do this whole cultural exchange. If I talk to a French person, I do mention how, Americans generally pay a bit less than taxes and do have probably a higher income ceiling, right? But the moment I mention that whole holiday policy or time off policy, most Europeans just shake their hands and they're like, yeah, no thank you. We would never want to live in a country like that. And even after so far 2 months out of 3, I can understand that, right? Because they look at the American time off policy as just a gross injustice, because they're like, why wouldn't everyone want to take a real break, right? Taking 9 days off, like I mentioned, it's just not enough, right? And I didn't realize how tough that and sobering listening to other people's opinions could make me feel, right? And we're the perfect example, right? Wifey and I had to both retire together to be able to take a trip of this duration. And I do think, the length of the trip matters, right? And I'm not saying 3 months is a perfect length. In fact, having been out for almost more than 2 months now, I'm starting to think maybe my idealized vacation time, or rather away from home time, is probably a little shorter. Maybe less than 3 months, but definitely more than that 9 days that I was getting. I think next time maybe I'll try 3 to 4 weeks, right? I think that's just enough time to feel that you have settled elsewhere without being so long that I have to worry about, the weeds overgrowing in my yards or something. Obviously, in this instance, your mileage may vary. So yeah, whether it's missing routine or my social circle or just realizations that Americans have it pretty tough when it comes to actually getting just time off to go anywhere else. I will say though, I do enjoy learning these new things about myself, right? So no regrets whatsoever. I want to visit more places, and just maybe just at a slower pace, right? That is, of course, maybe someday I'll find a regional base that I really want to really hang out with at a longer term, right? And maybe that's here too. I know my wifey probably likes the French Riviera a bit less than me, but she's barely retired, so I still have hopes that the next handful of trips that we're going to go on together will broaden both of our worldviews even more, right? Just like this one is doing for me right now. That's the reason for this rant, okay? Now, that's over. What do you guys love about your longest vacations? Let me know in the comments, all right? Cheers, à la prochaine.